Hello everyone and welcome to Makai-World Reviews. I am the Tony Makai, a master of minds and of men, and after looking at how vampires live together in New Zealand, we're moving over to how dogs live with people, as today's mockumentary will be Best in Show, another comedy fare for this month. So let's put on our two left shoes, run up those ramps, and see if we can get the blue ribbon. Alright, Best in Show, directed by Christopher Guest, who also co-wrote it. It was hard to pick one of his many well-done mockumentaries, which include Waiting for Guffman, A Mighty Wind, For Your Consideration, and others. Man with a great sense of humor that also has some interesting acting credits under his belt, like All in the Family and Saint Elsewhere. As I mentioned, Christopher co-wrote this. Who did he co-write it with? One Eugene Levy. Eugene played a kind of father figure in everything since 1999 and possibly before. An actor that might not always have the best resume, but he always brings his brand of deadpan humor to it. Of course, was a member of the famous pack who cut their teeth on Canadian sketch comedy show Stay Tuned and SCTV. Who stars in this? One, Jennifer Coolidge, a woman who is seemingly in her 9th or 10th renaissance as far as her career goes, a genuinely funny woman who has this sort of timeless quality to her, has been the zeitgeist since she was perennial MILF in Stifler's Mom. And John Michael Higgins, he has this ability to be utterly unlikable or shockingly charming, and very little in between. I love his voice, and it's gotten him far from things like Ally McBeal, Arrested Development, Community, Bob's Burgers, and so on and so forth. The release date for this was September 29th, 2000, and what came out around the same time. Remember the Titans. I'm not one for football movies, but this one, as cliche as it is still very entertaining, has a message that's hard to deny. Denzel proves he can carry even a reasonably weak script to a watchable status. And The Captive, a French film about SA, the inability to understand boundaries and bad relationships. So every French movie ever. Yeah, not so good and rather annoying, if I'm honest. So this mockumentary is about a dog show. Really, it's about the people who own the dogs, of course, and all their personalities or personality disorders. I'm going to go through the main people or couples, starting with whom are essentially the main characters, Jerry and Cookie Fleck. An excruciatingly middle-class couple, Cookie is a bubbly woman with a formerly promiscuous past, claiming at one point to have had hundreds of boyfriends, while Jerry is an odd man in many ways, including his looks and the fact that he literally has 2 left feet. But they have a lot of love for each other and are supported by their community in many ways, including people being excited that they're going to a dog show and supporting them with the horrible music they make. On the way to the dog show, they visit an old friend, in quotes, by which I mean one of Cookie's exes, a man by the name of Max. Max has a family of his own, with a long-suffering wife and child who seems to hate his family. Max openly flirts with Cookie and tries to establish dominance over Jerry by talking about his failed job as a person who talks people down while they're attempting suicide. They all jump, Max insists. After a skirmish with the couple's son, Jerry and Cookie soon are back on the road, arriving at the hotel where the dog show is taking place, though it turns out their credit cards are maxed out and they have no cash. But the hotel manager allows them to stay in the utility closet. They manage to win the first round of their prospective dog competition, but Cookie injures her leg, and 2 left feet Jerry has to finish up for the Best in Show category. Well, shockingly, their dog wins first prize. They become something of a local celebrities around their town and decide to record their own music for the world to enjoy. Moving over to the best couple, Scott and Stefan. I know neither of these actors are homosexuals, but the level of ridiculous John Waters camp they have is brilliant, and I won't hear otherwise. These two are flirty, sarcastic, quick-witted, and also bougie all in one. They got together because of dogs, so this interest runs deep. They take immaculate care of their animals, even singing them to sleep whenever able. They feed them high-quality kidneys and salmon. Scott takes 8 kimonos on a 2-day trip. When they arrive at the hotel, they crack wise, then redecorate the entire hotel room almost instantly. During their first competition, Scott's stride matches his dog's, which gives them the win in that event. But they don't make it through to the Best in Show, of course. In the end, they start doing calendars with dogs portraying scenes from old movies. It's cute. Now I move to the worst couple, Hamilton and Meg Swan. These yuppie douchebags start off where they belong, in a psychiatrist's office, but not for all of their numerous problems. No, it's for the fact that their dog saw them have sex in an unusual position and is, according to them, traumatized. These two love flipping through catalog magazines, non-dairy Starbucks coffee, Apple products, and being insufferable. They fight with each other constantly, such as about their drive to the airport, about the dog, about losing the dog's favorite toy, a bee, which cannot be replaced. If that's not enough, they fight with anyone else in their line of sight, like a man at the airport, the hotel manager, a pet shop worker, or a maid. They don't socialize well, and are out in the first round due to their dog not acting properly. In the end, for them, they have replaced their dog with one who enjoys watching them make love. To Sherry and Christy. Christy is a trophy wife who married a rich elderly man. Their dog is a multi-time award winner thanks to Sherry, who runs their kennel and is in love with Christy. They are the forerunners to win again, even doing a daytime TV show to declare as much, as well as having an ice sculpture made to celebrate the dog. Sherry refuses to budge from her more militant ideas on how she should be perceived, not allowing Christy to put makeup on her. Their dog easily makes it through the first round, with Sherry planting a kiss on Christy on live television. But of course, they don't make it through Best in Show. Despite being dejected by this, the two start a magazine, American Bitch, which is about lesbians and their dogs. I'd read it. Lastly, one Harland Peppers. Simple man. He owns a bait shop. He loves fishing and hunting. He loves his bloodhound. He loves ventriloquism, which he practices diligently. Despite Sherry trying to intimidate him at one point, he's relatively drama-free. His dog passes the first round, but not making it through the Best in Show, obviously. He then goes on to find himself, redoubling his efforts to his ventriloquism. Now let's talk about the nuts and bolts of the film, starting with the directing, as we are wont to do. I've always said one of the jobs of a director is to make sure you have the right people for the job, and in that regard, this was exceptionally well done. This movie is 100% carried by the strength of the actor's comedic ability. That being said, this is pretty much about as bare bones as you can get in regards to directing a mockumentary. It doesn't do much to go out of the standard comfort zone, and honestly, we move so rapidly between the characters, we lose a lot of hanging threads I kind of would have liked to be explored. But I'll talk about that more when I get to the story. So, fine directing, nothing mind-blowing, meh. As far as cine, another pretty bare-bones, basic sort of presentation. None of the sets or lighting or shots are particularly dynamic or interesting. It's lots of real static shots with talking heads that mixes the footage from the TV presentation of the show to the documentary part of it, which is a little confusing, frankly. It's hard to tell why all of this would be on the documentary, like the stuff with Max and Cookie and Jerry's part with the butcher shop and Stefan and Scott's, etc., etc. So yeah, the cine, sets, lighting, all nothing home to write about in any particular fashion, to be honest with you. To the story and whatnot, I think the actual story itself is interesting. It's a real low-stakes sort of documentary, but absolutely something I could see on TV, especially nowadays, without a trace of irony. And I rather like that we see a plethora of different kinds of people that would or could be involved in such an event. I even like that we don't just follow the winners of all the groupings, as the Swans lose in their first outing, and we see other winners we know nothing about. That being said, I know they only had X amount of time, and I wonder what was left on the cutting room floor, as it seems like we miss things I would like to see, and have things that frankly don't matter. The whole Flex sleeping in a utility closet is never shown or brought up after the initial joke lands. I also would have absolutely loved to see more of Scott and Stefan just in general. They were money. But the things they left in were sometimes. The whole thing with Max and the Flex staying there, we see enough of Cookie's lovers. We see at least 2 or 3 other guys in the movie. So that whole sequence didn't add or do anything more than to show Jerry's aggravation, which we were already aware of from the first interview. Though it did give Larry Miller something to do, and that guy is one of the best assholes in media history. Not to mention, and I hate to say this because I like the characters, but Harland Pepper in general was kind of irrelevant. He barely interacts with any other characters, save mild, brief conversations that don't really add anything to it. He felt like he was kind of tacked on and didn't do much for the experience, but essentially it worked for what they were going for. Going to characters, my usual longest section, and I'm hard-pressed to imagine this will be any different. First and foremost, I want to say the greatest singular character in this movie is Buck Laughlin, played by the brilliant Fred Willard, God rest his soul, but he and Jim Paddock as Trevor Beckwith are the perfect archetype for ridiculous, borderline non sequitur comedic announcers in Fred, and total straight man in Jim. Well, at least this side of Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. Fred transformed every scene he was commenting for or interviewing in just as a comedic masterpiece. I'm not going to go over a lot of quotes, as I could hardly do his delivery any justice, but I do want to say I don't think Shoeless Joe Jackson was involved in the 1919 World Series fix, and he deserves more respect. To the participants, starting with Jerry and Cookie Fleck, a simple middle-class couple, as I mentioned, living well above their meager means. Jerry is presented as an ugly man, big teeth, thick glasses, bad haircut and style, and literally 2 left feet, which is an odd decision, as it doesn't really come into any kind of dramatic tension. Even when he has to walk the dog in the contest at the end, we see it's been established literally in the first conversation with these two. They said plenty of physical therapy, and his 2 feet really isn't an issue anymore. Maybe if he had said, oh, it acts up when I'm nervous or when I'm stressed out, I begin walking in circles or something, we could have had a little more tension. But beyond that, him and Cookie are awful singers, but they have people around them that seem to really like their company, their personalities, and even, their singing. It's kind of nice. The only other real sticking point with these two is Cookie's previous promiscuity, which isn't really played in a horrible light. Jerry knew some about it, though when Cookie claims to have had hundreds of boyfriends, he is taken aback. But even he could accept that, had they not kept meeting people that she slept with throughout the film. And those men have little to no boundaries when flirting with her. First Max, then a guy at the dog show pre-party, then the guy running the recording equipment for their song at the end. Jerry does stand up for himself against Max, so he's not presented as some kind of cuckold, but you can tell this continues to eat at the poor guy. To Scott and Stefan, my favorite couple, though I suppose I can see some people getting offended by them, though that's of little consequence, to be honest. But I love this level of camp, and while they're exaggerated and over the top, I don't feel like they are anything but pistachios in a harmless manner, as was the style at the time. You're going to get lots of clever, if not cliché, jokes from them, and in style they are well-dressed, sarcastic, and persnickety. Both John Michael Higgins and Michael McKean are comedy legends, and they do not disappoint here. I wouldn't have minded if the movie centered on them, frankly. To Hamilton and Meg Swan, the absolute most annoying, intolerable characters in this movie, and that was wholly by design. I've mentioned they are yuppies to the highest order, with her braces and his love of J. Crew. They're even annoying to look at. They quickly dissolve into endless bickering, mean statement, and in Meg's case, outright racism. They put all of their insecurities and inability to have a fulfilling marriage on their dog. And in the end, continues this with a new dog who happens to be more supportive of their milquetoast and misguided love life. They exist to make everyone else likable, and I'd say they do a damn good job. On that note, I've had a crush on Parker Posey since I was a wee lad, and hey Parker, if you're listening, I'm available. To Sherry and Christy, Jane Lynch and Jennifer Coolidge have an incredible amount of chemistry together, though that seems unfair as Jennifer Coolidge seems to have chemistry with everyone in the world. Jennifer is perfect, as usual, as the dizzy but loving sex pot, and June is a masculine lesbian, was obviously perfect for that role. These two have little couples arguments, like about makeup, and it's clear Sherry loves Christy more than is reciprocated, but it's presented as that's every relationship Christy has ever had, and she obviously cares about Sherry a lot. There's a scene where Sherry is talking about their roles in the relationship respective to the dog, and she reminds herself of her father, a disciplinarian, and Christy as her mother, with boundless love, until her mother committed suicide due to that stress. The delivery of that was comically perfect in the movie. I don't really have anything to say about Harlan that I didn't already cover, though the man that works for him at the bait shop, Dale the Fishin' Hole Guy, was Will Sasso. Good to see old Will. We're not in a post-Sasso reality just yet. To the soundtrack, outside of the Flex and Harlan singing, I don't recall any music that wasn't incidental. So yeah, nothing to say here. It didn't really hurt the film at all, though I think it might have helped to have some music in certain scenes. Documentaries certainly add music fairly regularly for tension. Overall, I want to say I don't like dogs, so the dog aspect of this is nothing for me. Now, I certainly don't hate them. They are just not an animal I would associate with unless I had to. That being said, the dog aspect of this was pretty low bar, to be honest. But I also said before, this is a pretty low-stakes comedy, and I've seen it before. A second watch didn't do a ton for me outside of Fred Willard. I didn't chuckle, but I feel like once you've seen a movie like this one time, you don't really need to come back to it unless showing it to a friend. So yeah, I'd recommend to anyone who enjoys a mild comedy or has some background noise with the occasional joke you can crack up to. Well, that rounds up week 2 of my mockumentary month. Have you ever watched a dog show? What's the appeal? I've only briefly seen them and never had any interest in stopping, though I do watch the Puppy Bowl every year. Next week, we shy away from comedy, but not from dogs, at least in name alone, when we watch the disturbing yet intriguing Man Bites Dog. Don't forget to like, subscribe, add me on Instagram under DemonPeaks for Twin Peaks memes, and please don't forget, I'm the Eternal Makai, the only demon who loves you. Thank you, and goodbye.